Hi, my name is Avery Shawler, and I'm a first-year PhD student in environmental science policy and management. My research is focused on wolf-livestock conflict in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. I'm going to talk a little bit about my research and why that got me interested in this topic that I'm presenting for the Parks Institute. The greater Yellowstone ecosystem is not just Yellowstone National Park. It incorporates adjacent public lands and adjacent private lands. This map shows migrating elk pathways that my advisor, Arthur Middleton, conducted research on before. As you can see, elk are not confined to the political boundaries of the park and move beyond them. Often they find themselves in private lands. Elk are the main source of prey for wolves, which also move beyond the boundaries of the park and often commingle with cattle on private ranches, leading to wolves killing cattle. This creates conflict for not only the ranchers, but other stakeholders within the area. My research is focused on looking at these patterns that cause wolf-livestock conflict, but it got me thinking about other protected areas that have to deal with multiple jurisdictions across landscape scales. This gave me my idea for the Parks Institute. I realized that there are many existing collaborations all over the world that are looking to work on the landscape scale. In my preliminary research, I found an initiative that began in the US in 2009. It was started by the Department of the Interior, and it's called the Landscape Conservation Cooperative Network. It divided the US into 22 different ecoregions and also included parts of Mexico and Canada. Each of these landscape conservation cooperatives, LCCs as they are called, are self-directed entities and look at existing collaboratives within their boundaries. While the Landscape Conservation Cooperative Network program was not entirely successful, individual regions experienced different levels of success and were able to provide recommendations that could be useful for looking at landscape scale collaboration. In my initial research, I was able to look at several of these landscape conservation cooperatives and found different recommendations. I came up with a list of 3. These are just a couple recommendations. There's definitely more to be found. The first recommendation is to increase accessibility and sharing capability of information and data among collaboratives. Often each organization has their own way of recording and organizing data, and it doesn't often work between groups, so it makes sharing and accessibility really difficult. Also, it's important to have data in a very easy to read, easy to understand format if people are going to be using it to make informed decisions. The second recommendation is to have education and outreach to teach the importance of landscape scale conservation. Landscape scale conservation can be a little difficult to comprehend, especially if organizations are just working within their region. An analogy often used to describe this is looking at the blind man and the elephant. So each person is touching one part of the animal, but not actually looking at the animal as a whole. So more education and outreach to help people understand the importance will be needed. The third recommendation is to look at a more systematic approach to incorporate social science with other science. Often, conservation outcomes are measured using biophysical factors, but factors like social capital are really important when working with lots of different stakeholders and need to be taken into account when working on a landscape scale. These are just a few recommendations that I found in my preliminary research, but I'm suggesting a more comprehensive approach going forward. I'm proposing that the Institute conduct research to identify what policies, incentives, structures, and other factors make landscape scale collaborations in areas with multiple jurisdictions successful by comparing existing coordination efforts.